Da 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 All right, folks. So yeah, like I said in the title and the Twitter post and everything, don't expect too much from this. I just want to play around in that space a little bit. You know, I've tried a few times to make roguelike-ish things, and you know, they've sometimes I had some nice progress with them, but you know, kind of want to return back into this, maybe in preparation for the actual, like, the 7-day roguelike in March or something. Yeah, just want to put myself in that mind space here and figure out how I would organize a classic roguelike. You know, there's a bunch of little things about classic roguelikes that you kind of need to think ahead, you know? A lot of little problems to solve that are a little bit counterintuitive. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Let's make, well, first, you know what? Let's make like let's make like a really basic, like a few really basic tiles here just to get us started. This is gonna be tile based, of course. I mean, you know, you're a pixel artist. You're probably not gonna make your roguelike, you know. You're a pixel artist, you're probably not gonna make your roguelike ASCII. So I'm just gonna make basic walls to start, nothing too special. Just gonna make like basic blocks for the walls, some sort of basic block for doors. Maybe a different color palette than this one. I've been working on this color palette for a while now. Let's go with Edge 32. Yeah, Edge 32 is nice. Edge 32 is pretty nice. Yeah, let's go with that one. Let's change the colors I've already put in. There we go. And let's put some, yeah, just messing with something. Yeah, it's not really a project, it's just, it's not really a project yet. It's just a little thing. There you go, that's a door. And maybe a treasure chest, that would be useful. Yeah, a treasure chest, that would make sense to have. Like that. Yeah, sometimes you start something like this just as a little exercise, you know. It's not necessarily gonna get anywhere. It's always nice to have these sort of low stakes little side things. Alright, yeah, there you go. So, walls. Some walls, doors, chest. Let's see. Let's make a baddie. Let's make a quick baddie. It changes a lot, Gabriel. In this case, I'm just making some tiles because I know I just need some placeholders. But then I'm probably not going to be working on assets much at all for a while. So I'm kind of starting with some basic tiles just so that I don't need to worry about them later. Very often when I start a project, I would start with a mock-up. So I would actually draw like what the screen is going to look like. I'm probably going to make a mock-up in this too. Just to have an idea of how things should be laid out. The first goober. That's right. There we go. That's a baddie. But then let's have like a player character. Just generic little knight with a sword and shield. I should try to look for different dungeon synth, because every time I mash dungeon synth on YouTube, it gives me the same like 2 or 3 videos. There's probably way more of them now there. There we go. That's a little knight. It's just the right. I don't necessarily like Dungeon Synth that much. It just feels like the right atmosphere for this kind of thing. You know? It just feels appropriate. But I'm not like particularly like a fan of it. I don't like normally listen to it outside of that context. Yeah, I'll be doing it in Game Maker. Now, there might be a problem that, you know, this guy might look more like the main character than this guy does. So, you know, maybe I'll scrunch him up a little more. There we go. There we go. There we go. Now that's a baddie. He got crunched up. Rip. Rip. Okay, let's make some basic items too. Let's say. I think for now these are all gonna be like in the same tile set to just really simplify things, and then later it might get mixed up. But yeah, I'm gonna put all of the assets in just one set of tiles, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Let's have a potion. I don't even know what I'm gonna put in that roguelike prototype. So I'm just like, it's like in a way right now I'm figuring out what's gonna be in the game, just by randomly drawing little assets, you know. It's kind of funny. Like just by randomly drawing assets, this is actually sort of designing the game. That's just how it'd be sometimes. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get to level generation today, but maybe. Let's make food. Let's have like a big juicy steak. Or roast beef. You know. Shank of meat. Generic shank of meat. To find in a dungeon. Good old... Good old nondescript meat. That drops from even humanoid foes, making you wonder if you're engaging in cannibalism or if they just happen to... If they just happen to be carrying meat on them. There we go. Meat with the bone. There we go. Maybe a key. Also, maybe a locked door would make sense too. A locked door sprite. Or maybe... Yeah, I don't know. Sure. I'll have a locked door sprite. Just in case I end up needing that. I mean, that seems like that makes the level generation way more complicated, so I'll probably forego that for real, but... You know. go. That's a reinforced door. Alright, let's have a key. Okay, what else? Maybe like a generic bag for anything else that might drop. Yeah, just a generic bag is gonna be good for like sort of a nondescript item. Go. There we go. Okay, sure. Let's start with this as a little sprite set. Yeah. This isn't actually gonna be tiles. So I don't need to... Yeah, for now, let's just save this like that. And, asset tiles. Is there a way to import something as to like split a set of tiles here into individual frames? I don't know if they have that. Doesn't look like they do. Maybe I need to turn this into a GIF. Yeah, I might need to turn this into a GIF for that to work. Yeah. Oh, that's annoying. Yeah, okay. What am I gonna do for that then? Well, I guess I'm going to just import sprite sheet here. I'm going to import that, and it's going to be, oh, there you go. Import automatically imports this as individual frames. Then I'm going to save this as a GIF. Here we go. Simple. Asset tiles, here we go. We got the different things here. And the sprite sheet as an ASC file. Just grow this, and let's have the basic floor here. The basic floor texture is just gonna be like this for now. Yeah, I'll just copy paste this a few times. There we go. That's gonna be the background. Really the ground. Let's import the ground. This is gonna be SPR game assets. SPR ground. So later I can always add more to this. Okay, let's make a new object. That's gonna sort of be the system, like system master. That's gonna be like the core object that creates everything else. That's where like the logic of the game is gonna start. So I'm just gonna add this in the first room. Also, I guess I can set this floor I added as the background for that room. Let's just simplify things for now. repeated horizontally and vertically. Okay. Going to have object player. Let's give these a custom order. Okay. Let's shift it in another here. All right. Okay, so let's have something here that manages key inputs. Key inputs are just gonna be like the numpad arrow keys for now. All right, I'll need to figure out, yeah, this is the part that's gonna be a little tricky. I'll need to figure out really how I want to organize all of this. Because of course this is not gonna be a real-time game, this is gonna be turn-based. So I'll need to figure out how to manage time in this. I'll start with, yeah, game turn. Game turn, but also whenever the player does something, the action that the player has done needs to decide how much the game turns advance, basically, right? So it's like player action time. So it's like, yeah. And maybe game turns, but also maybe game ticks as well. So maybe I split game turns into sub time elements. Or maybe game turns could be the whole thing. I'm not sure which of the two here is ideal. Yeah, game turns could be just like kind of the average. Game turns could be just like the average sort of length of a turn. Or you know what? No, let's keep things simple. Let's just have game turns. And let's not have too much like, you know. Yeah, let's just have game turns, and that's like gonna be a large unit of time. That's gonna be like the smallest unit of time for now. And, you know, later, if this needs to be more complicated, then so be it. Yeah, no, this is not a big thing here. This is not a big project. This is just a prototype, like I'm saying in the description. Just messing around with a prototype. Okay, so whenever player action time is above 0, that means time needs to pass, right? That means the player's just done something and now the player is waiting for the turn to resolve, right? So if player action time is bigger than 1, player action time minus equal 1, and then I'm going to go over every object currently active. I guess this is going to be a new type of object here, which is going to be like entities, I guess, maybe? Yeah, maybe entities are going to be sort of like the core thing that has things happen over time. I'm not sure yet. You know, that might. Yeah, I think entities are likely to be like everything that needs to pass time. So the player is going to be one of those. The player is going to be one of those. No, other way around. So entity is not gonna have any parent, but player is gonna have entity as a parent. There we go. So with all object entity, they are all going to run event user 0. And event user 0 is going to be, okay, a turn is just passed for you, right? So event user 0. This is going to be turn is run turn logic, right? This is game maker. So there you go. So every time the player does something, it might take multiple turns or just one turn, but whichever it is, for every turn that passes, everyone's going to have like this yeah, the time is going to pass by one turn for all the characters. So this is where like entities are going to do actions. Now entities can also should also be able to do actions that take multiple turns. And so entities should, yeah, I'm now thinking about how I should approach like how entities work in this weird approach, like this weird turn-based approach where like most turn-based things tend to be kind of simple in how turns work, but roguelikes tend to be a little more, you know? Like most turn-based things, every action basically takes a turn with a few exceptions, but in roguelikes, very often I feel like, you know, things taking multiple turns to resolve is like a very common thing. So that's one way that like roguelike turn-based isn't really the same thing as typical turn-based, right? So what should I give to entities here? What should I give to entities as, you know, properties and everything? What's going to be common to all properties, no matter what? So that would be anything that time can pass, any like, so door, chests, enemies, the player, yeah. That would be basically all of that. So there's already X and Y here, but probably tile X, tile Y, because positions in the grid are different from positions in the whole map. Although I could use X and Y for that as well, since I'm also going to be taking over how the game is displayed. So I could just use X and Y here as the actual positions, but I would prefer to keep X and Y as like the visual position in the screen instead of the data position. Okay, so yeah, X and Y might be like, yeah, that's there. What else? Maybe like a generic like state variable, maybe. That starts with 0. Is that more readable? Yeah, I don't know if. Is that better? Is that better here? F8. Oh, there you go. So state is going to be this, and also maybe a state timer. So for like states might take more than one. So like progress or state timer or state turn, maybe? State turn. Yeah, so that way if a state takes multiple turns, this can keep track of how many turns it's been in one state. That could be it. That could be how to handle actions that take multiple turns here. Also, maybe something about blocking. So maybe like a collision type. Maybe I'm gonna make some enums for this. Let's make a new script here. That's gonna be the enums. Yep, that's where I'm going with this. Yes. So call type, and call type is gonna be free. Like floor or like a pit, I guess, pit. So that would be for things you can fly over, essentially. And maybe water. So water could be like basically a pit that some other creatures can go through. That's the kind of things I'll, I can add to later. And then wall would be something that has nothing can go through it. And also maybe creature. I'm not sure, like there's certain things maybe that could go through creatures but not go through walls. So I feel like separating these two might be useful. Maybe I should order it in this way. So like least restrictive is at the top with free, and most restrictive is wall. I don't know, something like that. And here, call type free. There you go. So it's going to be like the default collision type there. Okay, what else? What else would be applied to basically all entities? Maybe like entity class, entity type. So that could be where entities are sort of defined more. And this maybe could be a string. Or maybe it could be, maybe it's gonna end up being another enum. I'm not sure. It's gonna depend on like how many different versions, like how many different entity types they're gonna be. It might be like a low number. It could be just like entity type could just be like furniture, creature, item. Like that could be all. If that's all of it, then that would definitely be an enum. Entity type. So like one of them could be detail, which is something that you can't interact with, that just appears in the map, maybe. So yeah, that would be detail. Then maybe entity type could be furniture. So that would be, furniture would be like an object that doesn't have AI, right? Yeah, it doesn't have AI. It doesn't have like something it does, but it has it. It can have an inventory, you know. Yeah, like something that has an inventory that doesn't have AI, that doesn't do anything on its turn, but it does. You know, it can be interacted with. Maybe item. That would be kind of like furniture, but it's like one item, or maybe it could be like a sack, like a set of items, but it doesn't have anything else. Like it doesn't, like they all interact the same way, right? Like if you interact with it, it's like there's a pile of items here and that's it. There's nothing else. So that would be kind of a simpler version of furniture almost. And then you have creature. Creature would be sort of like the more complicated one. This is going to have everything. This is going to have AI. It's going to run things on its own. There could be other things too, though. What else could there be that would be like useful to separate as like you know, distinct from furniture and creature. Maybe traps? Like, traps are essentially like furniture that does something, you know? Yeah, maybe something, maybe it would be useful to have something in between furniture and creature here. Yeah, or maybe we could consider traps to be creatures or furniture and just make it that sometimes furniture has something more to it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I would go or if I would make that into its own thing between the two. Like, say, mechanism or contraption. Yeah, contraption could be sort of like a more generic. So basically it's just a more complicated furniture, right? Yeah, that might be useful. I don't know, we'll see. This is the kind of thing we can change later if it doesn't quite work. Yeah, just figuring out sort of the logic of how to even think about this sort of thing for now. So yeah, so the, you know, the defaults are going to be like the most simple things. And actually maybe entity here doesn't even have a state by default here. But yeah, for now, let's keep it with this. Not everything is going to be an entity. Some things are just going to be like the tile itself. So there's going to be like two sets, I think. Two sets of information about a map, I think. I'm going to make a new object here that's going to be system, like system world. Right? And system world is going to keep track of the map. It's going to keep track of, you know, this is probably going to be where the world generation happens. When system master is created, it's going to instantly create instance create depth, and it's going to create system world 0 0 0 system world. So it's going to create one of these. These should be persistent. There we go. So master is going to be like everything about the time passing and all the main things, and the world is just going to hold the information about the world and is going to have anything that affects the world is going to go through this object, I think. Yeah. Okay. So let's define how the world is being sort of kept here. Again, for now, there's just gonna be one map, you know? It's gonna start, I'm gonna start very simple here. I'm not gonna look too big. So first, let's make a map. So like current map is gonna be a grid. DS grid create. And it's just gonna be like a 40 by 40 grid, I think. Maybe like current map data could be like a struct, maybe. So maybe I can have a new struct here. Let's see. Yeah, maybe I can make like a constructor here for like function map data constructor, and map data is going to be sort of all the information about a map, right? So it's going to be like width, height, like a type, maybe some sort of map type. And what else? Like level, I guess. Sure. That could be all the inputs needed to generate a map, right? Yeah, sure. That makes sense to me. So here, I'm just going to give all the data based on these constructors. Width, height, type, level, and yeah, there might be some more stuff that needs to happen with this. Maybe there's going to be operations for the maps. Maybe maps are going to be connected to one another. So maps could have, like, connections. So maps could maybe have, like, their own list of connected other maps through connections like this. It might be a way to link maps together. But again, like I said, I'm just going to start with it making single maps, so this is not important for now. So current map data, new map data, and then I'm just gonna feed it the 40 type. For now it's just gonna be a string, normal and level 1, right? And maybe create, like, generating a map could maybe be based on current map data. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make, like, function generate map. And I just feed current map data into this. Right? Yeah, like that. And that's just going to... First it's going to clear out. Yeah, destroy the current map. So I can just create a new one. DS grid create. And that's going to be... current map data, like this. Width. So I'm just gonna take the information from the data here. DS grid clear. This would be current map grid, I guess. I guess the grids could be actually in the map data. So map grid. Yeah, that makes sense actually. Grid create. Yeah. Why not just make this part of that process here, right? Yeah. Let's do that. I don't need to actually create it here. This can just be not null, undefined. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Current map data. Yeah, I don't need to actually define this here because the map grid is going to be part of the map data. Okay. Now it's going to clear. So DS map grid is now going to be created here. And this is also going to, by default, clear the grid with position 0. Yeah. Now. So it's already being created here now. I don't need to create it here. What else could be part of the map data? I guess entity list. And that could be an array. So maybe entity array. Or just entities. Maybe array entities. Like that. Maybe AE, maybe this is how I define arrays. Might be useful. And it's just gonna be an empty array here. Yeah. And that could be just a list of entities. Now, for now, if I'm just going to make one map at a time, I could just create instances. I wouldn't really need to have a separation between like entity data and then currently active entities in the map. So that could be one way to handle this. I could also forego using like object instances entirely and only work with map data with structs, and not actually use game makers built-in instances system. That might be more useful, because then I don't need to worry about the difference between like a current active map, because the currently active map is going to have all of the instances working in one way, and then maps that are not currently active we need to work separately, and that could mean I kind of need to program things twice in a way. Well, if I keep everything to structs and I just work from structs directly, that might kind of simplify things. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah, because I would need to essentially like convert the struct version of a map and the data inside back and from, back and forth as like, into instances and out of instances. And that could get kind of complicated for no reason. But if I keep just everything as structs, that might just be simpler. So I might just not use like the entity object like this. I might just use structs for everything for this. That might just make more sense here. I think I might do that, yeah. That's a bit more work. That's a little bit more work up front. But I think this is likely what I would end up doing in the end. So maybe I just use objects and stuff here for like organizing how the data is being managed and everything. But then when I'm actually playing, the one big thing that makes me hesitate with this is that using the built-in instances system is going to make the game easier to debug, because the debugger is sort of built to use all of that. So there's a bunch of stuff here that exists. So the debugger would be kind of more useful in a way. So maybe I should consider just using structs for all of the data that's important, all the data that needs to be saved when you leave a room. But the actual part that interacts with this data could be instances. So maybe entities here have like an associated struct. They could all have like an assoc struct like this. And maybe all the important information is actually stored in this and not as its own variables like tile X, tile Y. And the state and everything like that. Like maybe none of this is actually part of the actual object entity. And it's all in the associated struct. And the object entity here would only like handle essentially like anything that is like only proper to the current activity of like, like sound effects maybe and stuff like this, everything around stuff that only needs to exist when something is on the screen, right? That might be useful. That might be a good way to separate things. So basically, I would treat the object, like the object instances, like entity, as just the skin, of what exactly is shown to the player. Everything that's like about your perception of it. But all the actual data would be stored in something else. And that would be the only part that's like saved. I think that might make the most sense here. Alright, let's keep going in this. Yeah, this is exactly the kind of like thinking on it to get through. Hopefully once I do the actual like 7-day roguelike, I'm gonna have this down pat a little bit better, and I'll know like the proper way forward. And here I'm just kind of improvising, and we'll see if something crashes and burns. Okay, so yes, so there's gonna be entities and also connections. That's gonna be two things that define a level. Now, an interesting thing is, now this is not important now, of course, but if later we have like there might be entities that can move between maps, but this should be easy to do. Like an entity could just be moved from one list to another map's list if it moves. There could even be a special function for moving entities between maps. Yeah, so I think that should work. That should be fine. Yeah. Okay. I think that makes sense. Okay, so when I generate a map, for now it's going to be really simple. I'm just going to... So when it already clears a map like this, I'm going to need another enum for, like, grid tiles, like tile types, I guess. This is going to be everything that's, like, basically walls. Everything that is not an entity that's being generated. So the different types of floors and walls. Doors are probably going to be entities. So that would be like tiles. And there's going to be floor. Floor is going to be the first one. I think I can use the word floor as the member of an enum, right? Like it's gonna whine here because that's the name of a function. But I think I can do this as part of a... Can't I? Is it actually gonna complain that I'm using the word floor as a member of an enum? Nah, no way, right? Huh. Maybe it is gonna complain. Oh, that sucks. Alright. I feel like it shouldn't, but whatever. Ground, I guess. That'll do. That feels a bit weird that it would complain about that, but whatever. There's gonna be wall, pits, water, lava, what else? Maybe like grass. Maybe like window or like bars for like things you can't go through but you can't see through. Oh, I will need to do like a whole line of sight thing too. That's gonna be a bit of a pain. It's been a while since I've done like a tile-based line of sight thing. Maybe I could just grab code from one of my older projects where I did that, though. That might be possible. Yeah, maybe. Yep. Yeah, I will at one point, as Petula. We are planning that, yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's do a basic. Yeah, let's make like DS grid. Set region. And I'm gonna set everything to be walls, and then I'm gonna make the middle open. Okay. Start X is gonna be start Y. So I'm just going to force the player to start the map somewhere like this. So that should just put some random walls down. Hey, neon layer. How's it going, Steel Soldier? That's just some random dungeon synth. So here I'm just going to be adding some random rooms. It's not going to be a very advanced algorithm for that. Just random ass rooms. Just to have something to display. And then I'm going to add a little spot where the player starts. Nice. Okay. So this should make the first map. It's gonna be real simple, and it also sets the player's starting point in the map. It doesn't make like doors or anything yet, but that's fine. And then instance create depth object player. That's gonna be sys World. Current map. Start X. Start Y. Okay, that should work. And I think the world should probably actually be what draws the map. I'm not sure yet, though. Let's add some new tiles. Let's add some new asset tiles for some of this. That's going to be walls. Let's make a pit. Edge 32. That's going to be what the pit looks like. This is gonna be the... Yeah, this is gonna be where I put the furniture objects, I guess. And this is gonna be all the main tile types. Basic floor is gonna be unchanged. There's gonna be grass. There we go. We got some grass. We got the wall. We got the bars. There we go. It's gonna be bars. Then the pits. Sure, that's gonna be the pit. And then water. Just a mouse. It's gonna be the lava tiles, if we end up putting any. Yeah, that should work. Now I'm gonna re-import these. Gonna re-import these. Oh, just a moment, just a moment. Sorry about that. Also, hey, thanks, Tugulus. There we go. So now I should be able to just draw the current tile. So let's do that. Let's do that. So I'm gonna have to. So I'm gonna keep streaming for like an hour still, or maybe two. But I was just invited to eat somewhere. So yeah, I thought I would just keep streaming for a few more hours tonight, today. But it's gonna be a little shorter than I thought. I was just invited to eat somewhere. I'll still have at least like 1 hour or two here. And I might resume streaming later tonight too. Okay, so let's have the world here. There we go. So that should draw. This should work, I think. Let's test it. Let's launch this and see if it draws the map. No, it crashes. Right, it should be current map grid. There we go. Let's try again. Map data. Oh, right. No, it is. It's not map data. It is current map. Current map. Current map. Current map. There we go. Let's try again. There we go. Look at that. That almost looks coherent. That almost looks coherent. Look at that. You. Okay. Let's have now a player position here. So this is gonna be the world. And then also I should randomize before this starts here. It's always going to make the same map. This makes sure the random seed is randomized every time. And then here I'm going to go with object entity. I should probably separate Yeah, I should probably keep this to only be tiles and the rest be actual separate objects. Because that's going to be, since I'm going to be using instances for this, I should probably separate game assets here between like game tiles. Yeah, game tiles and entities. I'll probably separate it later again. But yeah, let's just delete these. Wait, no, this is game tiles. It's the opposite of what I wanted to do. There we go. So entities now has these. And then tiles. It's gonna have all of these. And these are actually going to be entities as well. There's no specific plans yet, Jumpy Cat. Right now, this is just... I'm just messing around. No big plans. I'm just messing around. Everyone comes in with that question. It's funny. What's the big plans? There's no big plans. So entities. And then I'll just open up here, import sheet. Then asset tiles is gonna end at the lava. All right, and now entities, I can actually give them... I can actually give entities the entities sprite now. Okay. And now the depth of world is going to be 10,000, and the player is going to be no depth. There we go. And oh, the background should have a depth of 20,000. There we go. Image speed 0. Okay. There we go. Let's open up the views. I always forget what the widescreen what's the widescreen resolution that fits the best here? 1280 by 720. And that's 240. By 360. There we go. And it's going to be following the player object with or border of 320 by 180. Maybe minus 10. Hey, sine square. Okay, there we go. It's a little closer. That's a little closer here. Also, let's remove interpolated colors, and let's allow window resizing. Okay, already better. Already pretty, yeah. Okay, let's see if I can have some basic movement. I'm probably not gonna be streaming for much longer, I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna check exactly when I'm expected to show up there, so I know if how much longer I have here to stream. I'll be right back. Okay, got plenty of time. I got plenty of time. Got 2.5 hours or so. Should be able to put in some basic stuff from there. There we go. Okay. All right, yeah, let's put in some basic controls. Yeah. Oh, I need to order up this stuff a little bit better. Let's separate objects from sprites. There we go. Okay, system master. Yeah, let's have some basic controls here. If keyboard check. And for now, I'm just gonna keep it simple. Numpad 8. Okay. So if you currently are like this, numpad 2, numpad 4, numpad 6. It's going to be for movement. And of course, there's going to be some diagonal movement as well. 7, 9, 1, and 3. Now, how do I actually want to manage movement here? Should movement happen as soon as you do it, or should it be queued and then the actual... Yeah, maybe it should be queued. So maybe all entities have like a queued action. Yeah. Queued action. And then action delay. So that way, sometimes there could be a bit of a delay before. So like if your character is really slow, for instance, and you move, maybe enemies get to attack you first because you're slowed, you know? So it would be kind of useful to have, yeah, some sort of delay here before the action is run. Or that could maybe not be something like... Yeah, maybe it could just be part of how the turn logic works. I feel like this sort of turn logic, though, would probably be part of the entity instance instead of being part of the... I'm not sure where I want to put this kind of logic. Let's have a creature. And the creature's parent is the entity. And the creature is gonna have... an AI, and then movement. the AI would be where it decides the action to do, and then the movement would be the actual action. Yeah, of course. It's going to inherit the events from entity here. So maybe most creatures will have the same movement action processing, but AI would be what changes. That could be it. At least to start. Yeah. Okay, let's do... Right now, let's just make creatures on their own, and let's actually ignore sort of like the you know, the overarching object above. And let's add an enum for the action types. Yeah, the actions that are processing. So maybe like enum entity action. And entity actions could be move, could be attack, could be pick up, could be, I don't know, spell, drink, potion, what else? Open door. There could be a dance, sure. Dance and hug. So it'll be all of the different actions here. And actually the first one should probably be wait. So that would just be the generic thing if nothing's happening. So here I could do entity action wait would be the generic one here. Here, new action is -1. If new action is bigger or equal to 0, then current action is equal to new action, and action timing is 0. current action. So if the current action is wait, then don't do nothing. There might be parameters sometimes, maybe, to the action. So maybe there could be, I'll see, like a action data. And maybe it's, yeah, there could be like an action data. And that could maybe sometimes have some parameters for the action being done. Yeah, that would probably be the best way to handle actions like this. Yeah, that's probably what I should be doing instead. Yeah. Action data. Yeah, let's define an action data thing. This would just have all of the action. Everything around action data would be here. So constructor. And action data would be action type. And then maybe parameter. Action timing 0. And just timing, I guess. And sometimes there could be some other parameters here. Maybe I could just add some other, like, yeah, some arbitrary parameters could maybe make it here. Maybe, yeah, like this by default. So maybe current action, yeah. So maybe current action doesn't actually hold this. And current action is just... if current action... So if there is a current action, then you run it. So what would be the best way to organize how actions are being processed? I think ideally there would be like a main, like, generic way that actions are processed that can be overridden for different creatures, right? I think that would be like the best way to approach. Like, you know, there would be like a generic way that when a creature walks forward or when a creature attacks, there will be like a generic way that almost all creatures use the same logic. But every once in a while, I would want to be able to, like, wait, this one actually, there's something weird that happens with it, you know? So, I think most of the time it would be always the same thing, but there could be just a little logic before and after. So maybe it would make sense to just make a trunk of the same logic, but with a bunch of hooks that I leave in to sort of add some custom code. Or maybe it would be better if it was more flexible than that. And, you know, just about, I could just replace the entire code for some of the creatures, you know. Yeah. This is the kind of thing where sometimes you can... If you think ahead a little too much, sometimes you can overcomplicate things. So you gotta be careful about that. Don't go too far ahead of yourself, especially if it's something you don't do much of. Yeah, maybe like something like process action would be... Yeah, some sort of process action function here. Maybe that would be part of the action data itself. Or it would be part of the entity data. Yeah, maybe it should be part of like the entity logic. Yeah, so I would have an entity here. An entity, right? And entities would know their positions, their type. X position, Y position. That would be how I create most of them. X position, Y position. And here they would have a static function, maybe? Would I want this to be a static function? Because there might be maybe just one entity struct that just holds the data of an entity. And then another set of struct that is entity definitions that handles the custom code and stuff. So I separate the data of entities, which should be more similar, to the logic that handles that data. That might be a good way to separate this. Because that way saving and loading is going to be really, like, a little simpler. Maybe. That's how I handle things in some projects, and it's been pretty useful so far in keeping things... That's how I handle status effects, for instance, in Malison. I have like a generic type object for just storing the state of a status effect with a bunch of like generic variables for him. And then I have like status effect definitions. And those are all their own structs, and only one of each is instantiated. It's not instantiated for each instance of someone being poisoned. So I kind of keep the definition of what a status effect does exactly separate from the information of, you know, this person is afflicted by a status effect. It's kind of makes it a little simpler to work with. And now, you know, I've done this. I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to do it, but it's worked pretty well. I don't know if it's the right move here, though. I think I'll keep entities as just one thing. So, like, process action. So, not a static, just a regular function. And this is just going to be fed the action data. And this is going to just handle the different actions separately here. Now, how would I kind of split this into all the different kinds of actions? I think process action here would probably be a more generic thing that just checks the action type and then leads to different functions then. Yeah, I think that's probably how I would do it. So switch, and then action, data, action type. I don't know if I can cast action data here as a struct of this type, so that the function here knows that it's looking for a specific type of struct. I don't know if I can do that. That would be useful. If I can at least tell it that it's looking for structs here. But yes, action type, and then case, entity, action, wait. But yeah, that way I can have different, like, subtypes of entities that have this logic work differently. But I can also have kind of a generic way to handle all of these. I think that's useful. And then here, function. Yeah, I think that works. I'm kind of thinking back to what I said earlier. And maybe this would actually be the ideal way to go. Because I'll probably be loading entity definitions later from like an external spreadsheet and stuff, and I will probably want to store it as data like this. So entity and entity definition would probably be separate things. Yeah. Yeah, I would probably want to do this. Yeah, something like this, and maybe those would be like this. I'll need to think about this some more, I think, on exactly how I want to handle it. Hmm. 53 bosses, yeah. Nice. So how would I want to actually hold all of these definitions? I'll need to think about this some more. How would I actually want to hold all of this? What would be the most useful here? If I'm gonna be loading a bunch of like enemies, and I want, because the tricky thing means that when I'm defining an enemy, I will be kind of loading stats and stuff from an outside spreadsheet, and that needs to be loaded on runtime. But some of these would also have different behaviors that are programmed in GameMaker. So I think behaviors would probably need to have a separation. Yeah, there would need to be a separation between like the behaviors that are programmed. They wouldn't just be programmed specifically for a monster. They would be assigned to monsters. Probably by name. So it's like there would be like monster AI types or monster AIs that are assigned, and those would probably be set up in like those spreadsheets. So I could, yeah, like an AI, like AI script names would be assigned here. So when I'm loading an entity definition here, this would be loading like enemy definitions, and there would be a list of enemy definitions loaded from an external thing, and each enemy would have an AI script associated, or maybe a set of AI scripts. Would I want them to be, how modular would I want them to be? Maybe like a combat script. Maybe it could be like different separate types like this. Yeah, I think I would want it to be loaded externally like that, and the scripts in themselves. Now, the one awkward thing is that if I want to use like AI script names, unfortunately, of course, that means that when I'm filling out my, my spreadsheets, I don't have access to those AI names. So I'm essentially not going to have autocomplete on them. That's always the annoying thing with doing splitting the data entry between GameMaker and a spreadsheet, is that all of the GameMaker terms, all the stuff that's defined in GameMaker, you basically don't have access to, like, for autocompletes, and so there's a bunch of potential for like typos when you're entering the names of AI scripts and stuff. So that's always like the kind of awkward thing. So So the more you can do all in one or all in the other, the better, you know? Because then all the data is there, all the autocomplete is in one place, and so you have a lot less possibilities of mistakes. But you know, that's not like a huge deal. This is the kind of thing where you can just try to set up some sort of error catching to quickly find if, oh, this enemy calls an AI script that doesn't exist. You know, maybe when you're loading the AI scripts, when you're loading the external thing, it can give you like a list of warnings for you to fix immediately. So that's not like a huge problem. It's just like a minor annoyance, really. So it's not something that should prevent me from going with that, I think. Yeah. So, okay, so now how would I want to, like, separate the different kinds of entities here? Right now I'm thinking of entities as, like, one big thing that have subtypes. But I could also separate items from enemies way more. I could have these to be completely separate things and not subtypes of one larger thing. It's not necessarily the right move to make everything be like object, you know, variants of something else. But it can be useful. It can be useful to have everything sort of have this common heart to its data. This is the kind of little decisions like this. This is the kind of little decisions you make early on that might have like big impacts later, but you're not going to see those impacts early on. So you're making a bunch of sort of preemptive decisions that can be disasters later. And so, but if you play too safe and you make everything too complicated right from the start, that can mean that you hit this wall of complexity, and that can prevent the project from, you know, making any progress. So I think for now, I'm going to treat everything as an entity. And so I'm just going to treat everything like an entity that has an AI for now, just to keep things a little more simple. And I am going to separate entity definitions from actual entities for now. That is going to be the one bit of little extra complexity that I put in right from the start. So I'm going to have a list of entity definitions that are going to be created here. And I'm going to define a few entities right from the get-go here. Now, would I want those entity definitions to be... Here's the one of those examples of something being sort of like, you know, the more you do it in Game Maker, the more you have help with autocomplete within Game Maker. And that's kind of like deciding where to put that data is a little complicated. Would I want, say I have goblins, you know? Say I have goblins. Would I want in this project to have anything that actually uses the word goblins in it? In here? Or should all of that only exist in the spreadsheet? You know? Like... Like, would I want a list of all creatures in the game here? Would I want to have an enum right here in the game, in the logic itself here, for like creatures? And here I start listing, you know, goblin, bandit, bat, dragon, you know. Would I want that here? Because then if I do this, I need to, once I create like the spreadsheet of monsters, I would need to that spreadsheet to refer back to this, which is a little cumbersome. That means the spreadsheet needs to know the order, the hard-coded order of the monsters in the enum here, and the two need to always match. And that's a little awkward. Or maybe the game itself, the source code here, does not know what a goblin is. It's just loading whatever is in that spreadsheet and just using that data as is, you know? I feel like making everything just be part of the spreadsheet would be the thing to do here. That's a little... Again, that's a little bit of complexity here, but it means I don't need to, like, you know, keep track of... I don't need to have, like, essentially an enum where I need to hard code the, you know, the indexes of everything, because it needs to always match with, you know, the order that items are added in the spreadsheet at the end, you know? That's kind of, yeah, I'm not sure what exactly is the right move here. So imagine I have the spreadsheet here, and I'm going to be listing entities, right? And this is going to probably like export as a CSV file, and then when the game starts, it loads the CSV. And from there, it figures out what all the monsters in the game are, you know? So I can have, like, you know, Goblin, and, you know, here I'm going to have HP, MP, Strength, Agility, Endurance, Intelligence, Magic, Confidence, and Luck, and Defense. Alright, let's say that's all the stats. And everything else is like derived stats or something. Right? Imagine all this. Now I'm gonna shrink these. Whoops. There we go. And here we have HP and MP. Let's do some freezes. Freeze one. Maybe like a level that could decide where some monsters can spawn. So like goblins level 1, you know, 20 HP, 5 this, and let's just give some basic entries here. And maybe, yeah, here I'm kind of like deciding what the data looks like, so it's good to start with this here. Let's see, like AI script could be set up here. If it's just one thing, maybe it could be more modulator later, but for now AI script would be this. Also entity here, that would probably be like, I would probably want to separate some sort of entity code and then an actual like name. I feel like that might be a good idea. An entity code here would be like creature goblin or something like that. And then here actually goblin. Because then if I want to refer back to this, I would need to make sure it's like a unique term. I would need to make sure there's no spaces, you know, like, so that way I can use this as like a code here. So later, say I start defining areas or like levels or like types of encounters or something, or like things like this, then I could use this code to say, okay, I want a goblin to spawn here, right? But if it's like a name with spaces, or if, you know, so I think, yeah, separating like an actual entity code from the name, I think, is helpful. Okay. So AI script here would be useful. Maybe one thing that could help make AI scripts a bit flexible could be, there could be AI tags or something. That could be parameters that modify AI scripts. You know, like I could have AI script like generic. So it could be like a generic AI. That's like the one that's by default by most creatures, but I could have like aggressive and goblin, you know, and maybe the generic AI, there could be a few bits that looks for tags and that changes how it works a little bit. Like something like that might be kind of a good way to organize how AI scripts. You know? I'm not sure what you mean. It seems more complex. Okay, let's see. What else would I want to do here? What else would I want to define a goblin? Gear, probably. Like, equipment. And I would, so how would I actually, how would I define this? It could be just like a series of items, and it would automatically try to, like, equip them. Also, would they have equipment slots? Because, like, okay, here I'm defining a goblin as a creature, but that could also be, like, you know, like maybe that same data could also be used as for, like, the player. So maybe I would want somewhere here to define, like, equipment slots and everything. And maybe this would be also, like, kind of like humanoid. Could maybe load, like, a set of equipment slots by default here. Or maybe it would just presume the equipment slots is humanoid, but that could have like special tags. And special tags could contain anything that makes the goblins like different from the generic creature. So if there was a creature that had different kind of equipment slots, it could have like, you know, insect equip, you know, would mean, okay, this guy you have to give it different equipment slots. Something like that might be useful. Or maybe maybe this is also like more complicated than what I need here. But equipment here, that would be a good place. And here maybe I could have entity code, but for equipment to decide like the gear that goblins start with. So like, you know, I don't know, like equip armor, equip weapon, this sort of thing. Equip, like, you know, I don't know, short sword, and like say this is creatures. This is the creatures list. I could also have the equipment list. And this is where equipment would be defined. Now I don't know how else I would define equipment here. But let's just copy paste this for now. So entity code for equipment instead would look like equip, or maybe weapon, like weapon, sword, and equipment, armor, equipment, helmet, and maybe weapon, stick, weapon, mace, weapon, stick, weapon, sword, weapon, mace, and here like stick, maybe this is like rusty sword, and pernac for the mace. I don't know. I like a pernac. And then let's say like leather armor, and I don't know, kettle hat. Yeah, let's say these are just, these would have a different entity codes, of course. Maybe here level would actually, yeah, maybe there would still be a level because that would maybe decide like what dungeon level is normal for these to appear in. So I think these would also still have levels. I guess this would be like the stat pluses from these. And there will probably be more here, like attack or something. Maybe the most important one would be in front. Yeah, here, let's see, like, attack. Maybe I would want to define weapons and equipment as two separate lists, actually. Yeah, maybe, because weapons would probably have very different parameters than other stuff. So it might be useful to define weapons and equipment separately. Right? So weapons here, I would just remove armor and helmet from this. And that would add all of these things. There's no AI, no tags for this. And no attack for the weapon, but there would be weight, probably. Weight and value in gold, right? And then for this, there would also be weight. Weight and value. Not sure what you mean, Ricardo. Okay, so say weight, like, yeah, stick could be weight of 1, sword 4, and mace 6. Sure. Let's say that makes sense. Value for the stick could be 0. Value for the sword 20 gold, and Pernac 30 gold, let's say. 4, 7, and 10. Defense, none of these would give defense, but I could imagine sometimes weapons could give defense. Let's see, maybe a damage type. This would be a good example of a thing where it's kind of unfortunate that I would be, that I wouldn't have like the, you know, the autocomplete here. But since damage type, there's not going to be that many, so could have crush, slash, crush. I could have like a dagger in there. Dagger would weigh 2. Maybe 12. Maybe 6. And it would be pierce. Maybe alongside defense would be crit. Like the crit rate. Maybe it would be like, I don't know, 2% for sticks. 6% for rusty sword, but 15% for dagger. And 2% for, yeah, like crushing weapons should not have very high crit rate. Yeah, damage type I think makes sense here. Sometimes maybe there could be dual damage types. Also, sometimes it could be dual damages if I want to make it more complicated. Like separate damage types that are calculated separately. I don't know. I would still want to have like stats here because like sometimes weapons might boost a stat. Although that would be like an unusual thing for a weapon to do. Maybe I should not have this like these generic stat hidden numbers here. Maybe I would want like Maybe I want to use like tags for that, you know? There might be some more useful things here. So like equip tags. And maybe here I could have some special properties some weapons have, like boost strength. And maybe I could have these tags here where it's like boost strength and then there's a number. And maybe when GameMaker loads up this spreadsheet, it could read boost strength and then read the number and then it interprets all of this, you know? Yeah. That could be useful. Okay, what else could define weapons? Durability? Of course. I'm sorry, folks. I like when weapons break. Is just a thing I do. It's just a thing I like, folks. What can I say? I know people hate it, but I like it. Maybe 15 for the dagger. Actually, you know what? I feel like a dagger is more resilient than a sword. And then 30. UID, I don't know what that means. I don't know what UID means. If you're using some lingo. Some lingo. UID. All right. What else could be useful here? What could be like a useful maybe status effects could be something that are common enough that I would want it to be its own column here. Or maybe that would be the kind of thing that I use equip tags for. See, this is where you have to make a call for like how often a feature would be useful for, that it like deserves its own column, or if you can just make it part of like a generic column. Like this is more for your own sanity. Because if something is going to be used a lot, then you probably don't want it to be, you know, with a whole set of other things. So maybe like special damage. Spec damage here could maybe... Yeah, maybe the way to think of it is that equip tags would be something that it has in common with equipment. With like the other types of equipment. But spec damage would be special tags that are specific to weapons. And this is where you could maybe have, you know, like poison for, and, you know. Are you going to use this list to identify each one of them? I'm not sure what you mean. Identify each one of them? But yeah, so spec damage here, that could be poison. Also, if I want to have secondary damage, like say this is the main attack it does, it's like 4 crush, but say there's like a spiked mace. Spike mace, right? And spike mace, right, might be a level 2 item, might be like way of 8. Durability 40, I don't know. Value 80. And here, maybe this one does just 8 crush. And, you know, 2, or maybe this one does like 4 crit. But as a special damage, maybe it could actually do pierce 8 or something. And that would be like just an additional damage. Like a bonus additional damage here, you know? So, like, spec damage could be for status effects, but also for, like, secondary damage types. Like, a flaming sword might do an extra, like, secondary flaming damage. This sort of thing. So that would be, like, for status effects and secondary damage types. Equip tags would be for more general boosts that can apply to any kind of equipment. Okay. What else would be useful to add to how weapons are defined? Maybe a bunch of like check boxes essentially on things like whether or not weapons can be this is so what I mean I'll be exporting a CSV file. So I'll be exporting a CSV file, and then GameMaker is going to load that CSV and turn it into a bunch of data to use on runtime. Yep. Okay, so what else here? What else would be useful? Yeah, maybe information about whether or not this can be enchanted. This can be like stuff like this. Also, weapon type. There might be like skills associated with weapons. So maybe a weapon type would be useful here. I would probably organize this list into weapon types. Yeah, I would probably separate these into like subtypes, like groups of weapon types, because that's just way easier to sift through that way. I would probably use like entire lines for this. So like staff, mace, sword, daggers, swords, maces, staves, and here I would have the actual weapon type. So, staff, mace, sword, dagger. And you know, this would and I would like probably just to look nice, because sometimes you just want things to look nice. I would like separate it like this. So, you know, right now this doesn't do much, but you know, if you end up with a lot of stuff, you know, you'll be thankful that you did this kind of thing. There we go. Also, maybe like alternating colors would be a useful thing too. Isn't there a thing for alternating colors? I feel like there was a thing to force it to alternate colors. Alternating colors! Hey, there we go. There we go. I hope I can still, like, force... There we go. Perfect. Yeah, that makes it much easier to read. That makes it much easier to read if you have a long list. Of course, here it doesn't help that much yet. But yeah, later when you have a big list, that becomes very useful. Yeah, I think this sort of way to organize. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that I would need to like define weapons? What else would come through here? Oh yeah, whether it's two-handed. Yeah, whether it's two-handed. That would be important. I could make this a tag, but I feel like this is the kind of thing that could absolutely be a tag. Like, I mean, none of these are two-handed, but say one of them was a sword here. Elemental damage would be damage type, or spec damage if the elemental damage is a secondary thing. Yeah, let's say I have a claymore here. That's a let's say it's level 4 sword or something. It's much heavier. Durability, let's say it's more durable. Say it's worth 120. Say damage is like 14. And crit is the same. And say, so like I could have an equip or equip tag if it's like two-handed. So I could have this where like two-handed weapons just get a tag. And whenever I'm loading all the weapons, if it finds the two-handed tag there in that weapon, it just sets it to be two-handed. But I feel like this is one of those things where that would be such a common tag that just yeah, giving like a special column for it would make sense. So like hands. Hands too. Now, okay. It might be useful to separate here between weapons that can be used two-handed and weapons where you need two hands, right? You know, the difference between, you know, like a long sword where you can use two hands and a bow where you need two hands. That might be a way to, like, that could be another reason. Or I could just make it where it's like, it's just two-handed, but ranged weapons that are two-handed have a special sort of built-in thing where, okay, for ranged weapons, being two-handed is not optional, you know? So that could be a way to handle this. So this could be two-handed, and it could just say yes whenever something is two-handed, and that's it. That could be one way to do it. Yeah. That makes sense. Is there anything else? Just trying to think here. Probably a description, but that's more a flavor thing. An unidentified name. I love that. I love that stuff. Unidentified name. So at first... So it would be basically like the... It would be like the naive name before you know what something is. You know? So like... Now, right now there's not a lot, but once you start having a lot of different weapons or a lot of like weird, you know, busted versions of a weapon, this would tell the game what to show if it's not identified yet. And also probably like an identified difficulty. Yeah, that makes sense. Unident name and maybe ident difficulty. And a lot of these would be 0, so a lot of these would basically always be identified. And maybe like 2. What else? Maybe... I can't think of anything else for now. Yeah, I think this is good. I think that this would define weapons pretty well. Yeah. Can't think of anything else I would want for weapons. And I think for equipment, it would be a little simpler. So this would be for weapons specifically. This would be how weapons are defined. And yeah, we have tags, special damage. Yeah, I think this covers everything. And I mean, it helps when you have like tags stuff, because then, you know, even if you don't actually cover everything, you know, anything minor that you want to add later, the tags will probably cover it, because that's just a very flexible element of it. Another thing maybe could be like damage calculation. Because right now this is just a flat like damage amount here, right? Attack. It just adds a flat amount. But one other thing I could imagine wanting to do is a more complicated attack where it's not just a number. Maybe it can be a number, but maybe it can also be like a damage calculation instead, you know? Like 4 to 6. Or 4. Oh yeah, that's gonna be annoying. Yeah, that's gonna be annoying. It's gonna try to turn this into math as soon as I put some. I need to make sure it never thinks this is math. How do I do that? Data format. I'm not sure how to like really force this to never do that. Because yeah, it's gonna keep being annoying. It's gonna keep telling me. Yeah, if I start typing like numbers and like symbols in this, it's gonna keep trying to turn it into a different type of a thing, and that's gonna be super annoying. Can I do anything to prevent it from ever doing this? Would it be data validation? No. Tools? No. Oh, I don't know how to do that, actually. Oh, automatic. Okay, maybe there. Maybe that is what I want. Plain text. Okay, plain text. Is it gonna still annoy me here? Okay, I think that fixes it. Okay, good. So it could be like 2 to 6 plus strength times 2 or something. Like maybe I could put this, I could do this sort of thing here. Like maybe this sort of thing can work. Yeah, I think this sort of thing might work. This might be a good way to do. But for now, just going to keep it the basic numbers. And maybe another thing another way to handle this could be, another way to handle this could be that the way that stats work with weapons is sort of a built-in hard-coded thing. But there could be, again, tags that occasionally change those rules. That could be another way to do it. Yeah. I almost forgot. Another thing would be like theme tags, I think. Theme tags could be useful. Like, say there's a set of equipment that's like goblin weapons or goblin gear, right? I could have like theme tags that could sometimes like restrict so like when I have gear on something, it could restrict the gear it picks for that creature to be like gear that has this tag, right? So maybe, I mean, that could be part of equip tags, but I feel it would be like a separate theme tag. I don't know. Maybe that would go into equip tags instead. Yeah, maybe I don't need to separate this further. Yeah, maybe just equip tags would do this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, now let's do for general equipment. Let's do this for general equipment. Let's do alternating colors. What? Why is it doing this? Oh, come on. What? Why is it always selecting this instead of applying it to the whole thing? That's annoying. Why does it apply? What? Come on. Thank you. So no, I don't know what that was. That was annoying. Okay. Okay, so I have name. I'm gonna have unident name. Unident name. I'm gonna have ident diff. Actually, I should just get the same header as this here. There we go. I just don't need weapon type. But I still have value. Yeah, I don't have attack type or this. Just defense and crit. Actually, no crit. No two-handed. No special damage. But yes to equip tags and description. Equip tags are probably going to be more important for armor and gear than for weapons. There I would need equipment type. Yeah, instead of weapon type, it would be equipment type. Equip type. Yeah. This would essentially be like the equipment slot. So I would have like body. I would have. This is where all the equipment slots would be. Shield. Body. Head. Accessory. Boots. And maybe rings. Sure. That's some good equipment slots. Maybe there'd be more. Maybe cloak. Cloaks are fun. But that could also be an accessory. Maybe gloves. I mean, it's a roguelike, and you know, in roguelikes, you just got one character, so having a bunch of equipment slots is fun. Gloves, boots, maybe amulet, maybe belt. Yeah, belt. There we go. There we go. That's fun. That's a lot of stuff. Okay. Okay, unidentified name, identified difficulty, equip type. That would be body. Actually, equip type might be separate from... Maybe I would want equip type and equip slot to be separate things. Yeah. Like shield would be offhand, but maybe there would be other... Yeah, maybe I would separate equipment type and equipment slots into two different things. Hands, feet, waist, neck, finger. And here that would be body, armor. Shield, helmet, gauntlet, boots. I mean, boots would probably always be that. Belt, amulet, ring. So some of these would be a one-to-one, but maybe some of these would have separation. I'm not sure. Level, weight, durability, value, defense. Defense will be the most common thing it adds. Maybe encumberment. Yeah, like encumberment might be a separate thing here. That would only come in for like heavier items. Yeah, like it would be 0 for most light stuff, but heavy stuff that's meant to sort of hinder your movement or like hinder some stuff. Maybe that would be like a general value to represent any of that. That like lowers, I don't know, your accuracy, your movement speed, blah blah blah, and that could be separate from weight. And then you have the equipment tags and description. I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. And once you have this... Once you have this, and when you start, you know, defining... And you start defining your creatures. So how would you actually assign that gear to the equipment here? Like if I want something... If I want not all goblins to have exactly the same gear here. How would I define this using tags here? I mean, of course I could sometimes just give specific items. how could I do this? How could I set, like, specific gear here? Actually, non-specific gear. Maybe I can both put in like gear code, so like entity codes here, or sometimes I could put in equipment types. You know? So I could put in EQ, LTF, LTH armor, or I could just put in armor. And if I put in armor, maybe it would just grab a random piece of armor of appropriate level for that creature. Yeah. And maybe this is where, like, the equip tags would come in. So say I wrote, like, armor here. But for, so here there's AI tags, but there could also be creature tag. And here maybe I could have goblin as a creature tag. And maybe this would tell the code when it's grabbing a random item, because I put in an item type instead of, instead of a specific item code. That would maybe make it like fetch a list of all items of that type and then grab those that are of relevant level. And then of those, look for those that have that tag and then pick one of those, right? So the tags could maybe restrict. Yeah. And if it doesn't find that tag anywhere, then maybe it just ignores that one item. Or maybe it just gives it an extra value in the randomness. So it's just more likely to pick an item with that tag. Like it could be like twice as likely to pick an item of that tag. That might be a way to handle that. And still just use this and like make sure, because yeah, right now I'm really just thinking about ways to define everything so that it's all within the spreadsheets instead of having half of the logic defined in the spreadsheet and the other half defined hard-coded in my game here. Because it's a bit annoying when you have to when you like split the logic in two different places like this. It's just kind of annoying. So yeah, being able to have all of it just in the spreadsheet and then the game just interprets that, just puts all of this information together and then generates a game from this. I think that's the ideal here. And sometimes I could put in some hard-coded stuff, but at least if the tags and the spreadsheet handles most of it, I think that's going to be pretty good. Yeah, this would be a turn-based roguelike. But yeah, I think I could use this. Yeah. Equipment. Okay, now how would I put in optional equipment? Stuff that doesn't always appear. Oh, let's do a little stretch break, folks. An ad is starting soon. Yeah, I'll need to think about this. I need to put in something here to make some stuff have like a chance to spawn instead of always like being guaranteed. Like, so maybe goblins shouldn't always have a helmet, for instance. Maybe there should be a chance that there's no helmet at all. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, so how... So how to handle having random elements here? That could be tricky. How about... So different pieces of equipment could be separated with commas, right? So armor, helmet, sword, amulet, right? But maybe I could use curly brackets to denote that this is not, that I could have like multiple options here. So this here, maybe the way that the game could interpret this is this guy always has armor, always has helmet, always has a sword, and then a choice between an amulet or a ring. So that would be random amulet, random ring, or maybe a specific ring like RG fireproof ring or something, you know, whatever this would be. So that would make it pick. That would make it pick one of those options here. And the three would have like an equal chance. And maybe I could also put in, this would get kind of complicated though, but I could also make it that one of them is half the chance of the others by doing like divided by 4. That would get a little more, you know, complicated, but basically this would mean chance to have an amulet, a ring, or a specific fireproof ring, but the amulet has a quarter the chance of everything else here. And like maybe the fireproof ring has half the chance of everything else. That could be a way to do it. That would like define all the stuff that this character starts with. And if there's only one, so like the helmet here could be helmet divided by 4. And if it's by itself, that would mean it would only have a 1 in 4 chance to have a helmet here. So most goblins would not have an helmet, but 1 in 4 would get a random helmet. That might kind of work. That becomes a little cumbersome. That becomes a little bit cumbersome, but... But I think that kind of works. Yeah, it's you know. like most creatures would probably not have a lot of gear anyway. Like most creatures would, like there will be a few characters probably that have like a bunch of gear that are coming in like with a whole set of equipment. But most creatures would probably not have that much gear because they would have a chance to drop all of that gear, right? So most creatures would probably come in with like 3 or 4 items or something. Um, you know? So most of the time I think. Yeah. I think most of the time. Um hmm. Oh. Oh. Sorry about that. But yeah, I think this works. I think yeah, this is gonna be a bit cumbersome for like a few occasional characters that are gonna have a lot of items. Also, I could have like this would probably be maybe not equipment. Maybe this is gear, more general term, and maybe like items to drop would also be here. So like potions. So like could be like generic potion, and maybe divided by 4 would mean. Maybe divided by 4 would mean like a 1 in 4 chance to have this. But maybe I could also have, no, not X, but this potion X like times 4. And that could mean, you know, do this 4 times. And maybe I could even combine it. Like divided by 4 times 4 could be essentially you try 4 times to spawn a potion, 1 in 4 chance. So that means it would be up to 4 potions essentially. That's a little that gets a little weird, but I think it kind of works. Huh. Mm. Or maybe the best way to do this would be like times 2 to 4 and then maybe divided by 4. I think this might make a bit more sense. So what this would mean is a 1 in 4 chance to spawn 2 to 4 potions. That gets a little convoluted. I'm I'm just not sure how else I could try to do something like this with just tags, you know? This seems to me like, although this is kind of convoluted, um, you know, I kind of need to set it up in a way like this. I'm trying to think if there's like a simpler way to do this with all of these different options without like just building a super complicated menu for it. Is there a better way to do this? I mean, I could just simplify this to just have specific like item drops. Because the more like most of it, like the gear, the actual equipment, will usually not be okay. You need to do this 4 times and blah blah blah. Different potions categories. I'm not sure what you mean. But in this case, it would be grabbing a random potion, but then I would have like potion types as well. Probably. Yeah, this would be kind of like armor. How armor here is a generic term, but I could also put a specific armor. Like ring here is a generic term, but I could just put in the code for a specific ring. It would be the same for potions here. So no, it's more about, yeah, like just how to simplify this into something more readable. How to set up this whole, you know, if there's maybe a simpler way to set this up into something that's a little bit less cumbersome, you know? I'll need to think about it. I'll need to think about how I want to do this. Maybe gear and maybe equipment and inventory or drops or items would be 2 separate things. That would at least make it less charge, you know, that would kind of reduce the sheer amount of things. And it would mean I could have a character like start with an item that is not equipped too. Yeah, I think that works. I mean, it's a little cumbersome, but I think it makes sense at least. And I know I can do something like this. I know that this works. It would just need, you know, it just means that when it's loaded up, it needs to all be interpreted in one go and turned into something that makes sense in code. Okay, let's try to define how usable items might be. Usable items might be the most complicated ones, actually. Yeah, usable items might be the trickiest one. Like, say I have potions. Scrolls. Wands. The typical roguelike items. Food. Miscellaneous. There we go. That's basically all of it. There might be more, but... Okay, instead of equip slot here, it would be item type. Potion. Scroll. Wand. Food. Miss. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be an item type or just going to be where, you know, smaller item types are put. So yes, so level, weight, durability, value. Not defense. And not encumberment. But effect tags? Yeah, this is the tricky thing, because all items would have different effects when they're used. It would need to be effect tags and item tags, I think. And effect tags would be like actually defining what the item does. And that would be probably the most general type of tag there is here. There will be a lot that can happen in there. Yeah, that's going to be tricky here. So like healing. So potion, healing. And healing potion. All right. And effect tags could be like heal 40 or something. So that could be one of the effect tags here. That would mean, you know, you heal 40 hit points. Or 40 to 50 or something. And that means, like, yeah, tags would need to be created for every single type of item. Every single thing you can do would need to turn into a tag here. That could be pretty complicated. But I think that's the kind of thing I would need for items. Yeah, that's complicated. There's a lot. All right, I think I'll need to think about this some more. I'll need to let this percolate a little bit. Think about how I'm gonna be importing all of this into the game, and interpreting all of this and turning it into these item definitions here. These entity definitions. Right, I'll need a place to also define like doors and like furniture and any object you can find that isn't an item or a creature. Though I could make a bunch of these things into creatures. Like maybe doors are considered creatures that just don't move. That could be a way to do it too. Yeah, okay. All right, starting to form in my head a little bit. But yes, like I said earlier, though, I am gonna need to go because I was unexpectedly invited to. I was unexpectedly invited to go eat somewhere. And I'll need to go prepare a bit, so I'm gonna stop the stream here, folks. I might resume it later tonight when I'm back. But yeah, in the meantime, I'll be thinking about this a bit and exactly how I want to separate this. Yeah. All right. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Yeah, I didn't really make anything too functional. I mean, I did get like started on just having, you know, this. You know, it kind of vaguely looks like a roguelike, but it isn't really one yet. But listen, gotta start somewhere. You know, gotta wrap my mind around what I'm actually making. Okay, but yeah. So, thank you all for watching. Before I go, let me quickly link my Patreon as usual. And let's see if I can raid somebody. Anyone playing Look Outside right now? Well, I'm seeing some folks. But there's someone here that seems to be at the end of the game.
So I'm almost positive I gave them all the correct.
Well, okay, okay. Well, let's raid Roy Martini here, but they are almost at the end of the game, so this might not be going for very long. But still, that's still good to raid. Alrighty. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and take care.